Thank you. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on WZRD Zoe Leigh, an activist. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, first of all, tell us about eminent domain and then how it affects you.
In 2017, the city of Chicago unlawfully demolished my family's building on 79th and Holsted, which is the old Sandpiper's Lounge. They said that the building was knocked down due to building violations, but we never received any notices, or we never went to buildings court. And my mother was fixing up the building at the time. The electrician went over to the building and realized that the building was gone. And he contacted my mom. My mom contacted the city. The city had no idea what she was talking about. So she went and got a police report, and then she started the process with trying to get paid. And to this day, we have yet to be compensated for the city of Chicago buildings department unlawfully demolishing my building. If you talk to the city buildings department, they say that the building was knocked down because of building violations. If you look at the building permit, the demolition permit, it says the owner of the building was the city of Chicago. According to our federal lawsuit that we have against the city of Chicago, the law department is saying that they were under the impression that the city owned the building. And we had a quit claim deed, and they said that the quit claim deed was not could not hold up for us to have that building, but they didn't know that the original deed was in a trust the whole time. So now we are waiting for the judge to make a ruling on their motion to dismiss. Their motion to dismiss is basically saying that the statute of limitations was the statute of limitations. We're over the statute of limitations, while they keep repeatedly causing more harm and fraud. So the statute of limitations will never end because the city of Chicago is one of the most corrupt cities on the planet, and they are so used to demolishing our buildings without going to court, or without getting the correct basically going to court. They never go to court. They think that they can demolish buildings or take buildings due to their power, and you cannot override the Constitution, which is a legal eminent domain, which is the Fifth Amendment. You also cannot override the Illinois demolition laws, and a lot of people don't know that you're right. So right now we're just waiting on that, and on top of that, we have 6 other lots that's right next to the building that was knocked down, and they're trying to put a government-run grocery store on that land, and we have yet to get paid for that as well.
So you must have learned about all this eminent domain laws and statutes after this happened to you.
Yes, my mother knew that it was unlawful, but of course we're not attorneys. And every time my mother tried to get an attorney, no one would take the case because they did not want to go up against the establishment. And then when we did have one attorney that was able to go up against, that was willing to fight the city, he decided to stop fighting the city because they just basically said that, we had a quick deed, and a quick deed does not basically say that we own this building, even though this building has been in our family since 1965. Any deed that's from 1985 and 1985 and past, they will put it downstairs in the Cook County deeds downstairs. So our deed is in there. It is in there, but it's because we had the building since 1965 and we had the deed in 1972 the deed is no longer upstairs where anything that's 1985 and above is. So anything that's between 1985, anything past, under 1985, I'm not saying it right, it's down at the bottom. So usually a lot of buildings are paid off. A lot of seniors have already paid their buildings off. A lot of families go and sell their buildings. So the city of Chicago takes buildings, and they take buildings by saying that, there was no deeds, but there are deeds. Deeds are just downstairs. And if you do not keep up with your building, that's anything that's from 1985 and past, they will automatically think that the person is dead. They will automatically think that the person doesn't have the deed, or the family didn't keep up with the deed. So that's why it's very important to have a trust, because the only reason why we're still in this fight right now is because our copy of the deed was in Chicago Land and Trust the whole time. The mortgage was taken out of LaSalle Bank. LaSalle Bank is now Bank of America, and it was paid off in 95. This is a paid off building. And what I've learned, the overall issue in the city of Chicago and Cook County, is that a lot of these city officials are realtor agents, or work with realtors, and they work with developers, and they take our properties, for kickbacks. If you're elected official, or they take it for if you're a realtor agent or you work with a realtor agency, for a developer group to do affordable housing or for TIF money. And it's been going on for so long that you can't get an attorney. You can't get any help from your elected officials because they're all in on it. So this is the first time that my mother went into the hospital. My mother's 75. She went into the hospital last year. And when she went into the hospital last year, I packed all my stuff up in Atlanta and moved back to Chicago to figure out what the issue was. And so during the summertime, I protested out front of City Hall all summer. And then when I would leave, I would go home and I would research demolition. I would research the eminent domain. I would research blighted properties. And I learned that there were so many laws that you still can use, but a lot of people don't know. I also looked at the federal law for demolition. I also looked up the Chicago policy of how they continue to knock down buildings over police powers, but police powers still do not override a court order. So reading all of this and seeing that not only are they breaking the Fifth Amendment, they're also breaking Illinois federal demolition laws and building laws. And a lot of people don't know that because, again, I'm not an attorney. My mother's not an attorney. I just was not okay with my mother fighting this for 5 years. And they're basically trying to tell her that she was delusional or she was crazy, knowing that the city of Chicago knocked down a building that everybody knows, the Sandpiper Lounge. If you're Black, even white, even all nationalities, Hispanics know that the Sandpiper Lounge has been there since 1965. And it has done so much for the community. President Obama, when he was announcing that he was running as a senator, he went in there. We have pictures of him, Al Sharpton, Pat Quinn, Daley, like everybody was in, Jesse Jackson. Everybody went to the Sandpiper Lounge. So the fact that they knocked this building down and think that they were going to get away with it is wrong, and it was unfair because that's a landmark. Before that was a Sandpiper Lounge, that was Fannie Mae's candy factory. So I know I'm going on and on. I apologize, but to say that the laws, people have to understand how significant and how important the U.S. Constitution is, and the U.S. Constitution is what is saving us in this fight, along with the Illinois federal demolition laws, and also the Illinois Constitution. A lot of people don't know that each state has a constitution as well. And when you look at all the, like the 14th Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, which is my violation of my due process when it comes to the 14th Amendment, people do not understand how important that is, especially when it comes to fighting for your land, your property. This is my generational wealth. And because I'm an entrepreneur, because I understand how much land is worth, how much real estate is worth, to actually be fighting for this and not receiving any help from your local aldermen, your local mayors, your senators, your state reps, your governor, the attorney general, it's scary because all the laws are there and I'm showing them the laws and they're still ignoring it because at the end of the day, it's big business when you're taking people's property.
You also if it's happened to the Sandpiper Lounge, and you're also saying that it happened to a lot of other people that are less well known, their properties as well.
Yes.
And you said that people need to keep up with their deeds. How do they keep up with the deeds?
The trust is the very first thing that everybody needs to get. And we don't talk about trust as much as we need to talk about trust. A trust is super important. And if you have that deed, you have to put it in a trust. And anybody that you trust, you need to put on that trust. And that right there is a big, like, if I didn't learn anything else, I learned that this trust is something that every American citizen needs. Every person that has any type of land, property, they need a trust. A will is good as well, but a trust is what saved me, because I see people right now that are dealing with going back and forth with a will. You can't go back and forth with a trust. Those people that's on that trust and whatever's in that trust, if it's land, property, whatever else you're putting in that trust, they can't go back and forth with you because that's the whole purpose of a trust.
Are you talking about the Chicago Land Title and Trust Company taking care of the deed, or are you talking about a trust that was drawn up between generations?
Well, Chicago Land and Trust are the ones who we used for the trust, but what you just said, it needs to be like right now. I have a grandniece. She's 6 years old. She's on that trust. You see, and I'm having my and if I have children, I haven't had children yet, but who's ever next in my family to have children, their names are going on that trust. That is the problem. We're forgetting our kids, and we need to train them. Hey, we got this land, we got this property. Your name is on this. When you turn a certain age, understand that if anything happens to us, this has to go to your kids. It has to go to your kids. It has to go to your kids. And that's how we get generational wealth. But we do not talk about it as much, especially in the Black community. I see it in a lot of other communities, but we don't talk about it as much in our communities. So I appreciate what you just said, because that is something that we need to do, but we don't do it. Because you can get a trust, but if you don't put any other children on your trust or your grandkids or anything like that, then it does go back to the city or go back to or the land, the people who own Chicago Land and Trust. They can do whatever with it.
Okay, so a generational trust is something that is separately drawn up by an attorney for between generations. It's separate from the Chicago Land Title and Trust.
Yes, but you can add those. You can have a lawyer draw it up, or you can draw it up yourself. But if you add, but you make sure that you have that trust, and you guys are paying on that trust. Our trust is only $200 a year. That's nothing. You see what I'm saying? And you can have it's good to have a lawyer draw it up, but if you cannot afford a lawyer at the time, you can draw it up yourself. Go get a notary, go get someone to notarize, go get somebody to notarize, and take it immediately to the trust, and you guys check on that trust. Check on that trust every week. One person check on it every month, because sometimes the city will, or even the city, anybody, like say IRS or anything, has some type of lien or tax lien or trying to do something. They will find that trust, and they'll put it on the trust. But it's fine, because at the end of the day, the trust is between you and that IRS, you and the city, you, and people do not understand that. Like, that is, it's important. It's like a safety deposit box. It's like another safety deposit box. Only thing is, it's in a trust. And a trust, again, is what saved this, what saved us, what's saving us.
So your family was aware of this and had the trust then. They were paying $200 a year to maintain the trust then.
Yeah, the problem was the city of Chicago is just corrupt. You see what I'm saying? The city is like, and I'm not even just saying the city. A lot of these cities, a lot of these counties are corrupt. Okay, so because we do not have attorneys, the most important thing out of all of this is trying to find attorneys, right? So because we cannot find attorneys, a lot of people either give up, they don't have the knowledge, or they give up, they don't have the knowledge. Hold on 1 minute, hold on. Hey. Listen, I'm on an interview right now. I'm on an interview. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so when it comes to the issue is you cannot find lawyers. So back in the day when my godfather, when they first were trying to take this property, they've been trying to take this property for a very long time because it's in a TIF district. I don't know if you're familiar with TIF. TIF is tax increment financing. Okay, so because it was in a TIF district, and my godfather at first did not want to trade across the street. Okay, so across the street from the Sandpiper Lounge is where the old Capitol Theater used to be. And because they wanted him to trade with the alderman at the time, Latasha Thomas, wanted him to trade over there, he didn't want to, because the building, he still had his building, and he had his liquor license, and Sandpiper Lounge was still up and running. When he decided not to do that, a month and a half later, the police went in there and took his liquor license off the wall, and he was out of business. So you just ran a black man out of business who's been in business since 1965. That was the first thing. The second thing was this big tax lien bill, like $50,000 a tax lien bill. We paid that. Once we paid that, and my godfather and my mother put the building in my mother's nonprofit, next thing you know, they knocked the building down. So when I say, but you couldn't get an attorney, you can't get an attorney. When they first was doing this in the beginning, Ed Burke and Vidoliat, are you familiar with Ed Burke and Vidoliat? Yes. Right. They were the only ones that Black people could get to take their cases. But they still, in the end, would lose the case, because they would say, okay, we can get you $20,000, we can get you $30,000, but you got to give up the property, you got to give up the land. So we would still lose. And they would go and give that to their their developer friends or whoever. So it was still a lose-lose situation. That's why they're both, one in jail right now, and the other one went to jail. So because we're not familiar in our communities about tax increment financing, or the ones that do know about tax increment financing, and when you do go to your alderman, because the alderman has a very powerful position, and when you go to the alderman and you explain this to the alderman that you would like to get some type of TIF money to rehab your building or do anything like that, then that's when they start talking about, well, you got to send a PowerPoint, or they're not interested, or they're not going to meet you and stuff like that, because they've already made arrangements to give your property to somebody. So that's the overall issue. The issue is that they prey on seniors, they prey on people who have paid off properties, and they take our properties and they take it by way of probate, illegal eminent domain, illegal foreclosures, or fake tax delinquent tax things or tax sales, when at the end of the day, that your property shouldn't even be on a tax sale. But you don't know, because a lot of these people are not computer savvy. They're not they don't know about social media. So my mother's 75. She doesn't really know how social media works. My godfather, he doesn't know how social media works. So because they don't know, they're not technology savvy or tech savvy, people can take advantage. And that's what has been happening for a very long time. And no one has yet to challenge it. So I challenged it because my mother, I challenged it because my mother went into the hospital. I didn't have no idea that I would be this far explaining this to you. I would never, if you would have asked me this like 2 years ago, I would have never thought that this would have been my fight. But this fight is so important because we do not have generational wealth in our communities, and this is the reason why.
Does it happen in other communities? For instance, white communities or Asian communities, this kind of land grab?
I believe so, because when I was protesting outside last year, the first day, my poster just had the city of Chicago knock down my family's building. And the only people that would come to me would be Black people. And they would say like, oh, that's what the city does. They normalize, right? However, the next day, I switched it to the city of Chicago unlawfully demolished my family's building, eminent domain. Asians stopped me. Hispanics stopped me. Whites stopped me. Hey, yeah, they did this to my family. You got to get a lawyer. Okay, you got to get a lawyer. You'll get it back. The problem is, in the Black communities, we don't even have Black lawyers who are taking these cases. Asian lawyers are taking the cases. Hispanic lawyers are taking the cases. White lawyers are taking the cases. Black lawyers are not taking the cases. And then when you do find maybe someone that's willing to take the case, they either stop taking it, or they come with something crazy like, hey, we can probably get you $50,000, but do you still want the land? Yeah, I want the land.
So when you mentioned earlier that it's hard to find a lawyer, you're saying that it's hard to find a Black attorney, but if you were able to settle for a non-Black attorney, you might be able to get one to help you?
Well, a lot of non-Black attorneys are not reaching out either. I've reached out to plenty of white attorneys. I've back in the day, if you had a Jew attorney, you were going to win. You know what I'm saying? I reached out to plenty of Jewish attorneys. I went to the Jewish law bar. They have a whole law organization. I went to them to reach out to it. So I could say that it's a race thing, but the more I think about this, I think it's just more of a lazy thing. People are lazy. The civil rights attorneys do not want to do anything that's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say you have to like get killed by the police, get ran over by a Mack truck, do something that's real easy. You understand? When it comes to like violation of other civil rights, I'm learning that no matter who, the white, Black, Mexican, Indian, if they want to make it easy. So that's the problem. I say all the time, I know Black America is sitting on billions of dollars of lawsuits. We're sitting on billions of dollars of civil rights violation lawsuits, but we can't get any help. And there's a lot of people that do not understand pro se. Pro se. I'm not afraid to speak to a judge. I'm not afraid to, especially when I know that I'm being wronged. So I just feel like that's the problem. At first I thought it was like a racial thing. And then when I started realizing like this might not even be a racial thing, this is just a lazy thing.
Pro se means to what?
Pro se means to represent yourself in court.
When you mentioned that it's a lazy thing, is it perhaps that they feel that they cannot win? Or is it that they could win as long as they put in a lot of work?
They can win. It's the research. I understand why some lawyers charge so much in research because all summer, I protested for 17 weeks. But every day after I would protest from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., I would go home. I spent so much time on my computer, I crashed it. That's because it was like a rabbit hole full of laws that people don't even know about now. There's a law called Blighted Property Act 1947, 1949. That act is an act that you can use if you feel like my building, for instance, if you felt like the Sandpiper Lounge was an eyesore to the community, if you felt like it was a danger to the community, you are supposed to go to the governor, and the governor is supposed to go to the attorney general, and then the attorney general will say that it's eminent domain, but you still have to pay the person. So the issue is we still have the lands, right? But they knocked down the building. So another thing that the city of Chicago says that, well, it's technically not eminent domain because we didn't you still have the land. So they manipulate the Fifth Amendment too. The city of Chicago manipulates the Constitution just in general. That's a whole nother story. But the government knocked down the building. You understand? Not a regular person. The city of Chicago hired Delta Demolition to knock down a building that they said was the reason why they knocked it down was because of building violations. This is what they said, right? However, we didn't get a lien. Usually when you knock down somebody's building, especially it's owned by a private person, you're supposed to put some type of lien on the person, right? Because the city had to come out, knock it down. You gave all these notices, but we didn't receive. I mean, you're saying that we ignored every notice. So if that is the case, if that's the case, then why don't we have any liens? We don't have any liens because if you look at the demolition permit paper, it says the owner is the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago believed that they own that building because of the corruption behind of why they wanted to that building. Now, for me, I think it's because it was in a TIF district. And what I'm learning now is that a lot of these developers are trying to come in and do this affordable housing. But the affordable housing is a money laundering tactic to continue to take money. That is my belief. However, the reason why they're taking buildings down on the south side and the west side is because they're trying to build the community up. But if that's the case, so much money is passed every year for redevelopment of our communities, and our communities still look the way they look. Chinatown does not look abandoned. Ukrainian Village doesn't look abandoned. Pilsen doesn't look abandoned. Streeterville doesn't look abandoned. Now State Street is starting to look kind of abandoned, and they've just passed $1 billion in bond. Actually, they took the money that was supposed to be for Invest Southwest, Brandon Johnson, and put it in a bond to start working on State Street because it's looking abandoned, and you can't have State Street looking abandoned.
So it's a corrupt system that the attorneys can hardly fight against. But let's say that an attorney is successful. What could the attorney do? For instance, your deed is in the trust,
Right.
but they still demolish the house, and then you still have to go through all this legal process to get some money back,
Right.
some compensation. So it's uh, what else can a person do? It was in a trust, and evidently the city did not even look in the trust. They just tore it down and then deal with the consequences later because they're still ahead.
Yeah, and actually they knew it was in a trust. They actually tried to, the first time they dismissed my mom's case, they actually put, if you look at the evidence, they had the same trust as a photocopy of a trust, a photocopy of the same trust with the deed in the evidence, trying to say that the person that was on there was no longer, it was their property, and that this is a deed and it's not, and this is not the original deed. I mean, this is not the same deed, the same name that was on the quit claim deed. So back in the day, there was this thing called a nominee. So when people purchased buildings, the banks back in the day would nominate a bachelor, and the bachelor couldn't have any kids. The bachelor could not be married. The bachelor, I don't think, could be divorced. It was a single person that had remained single, and that is a name that's on the deed. Now, when you talk to the manager at Chicago Land and Trust, she explains this. She said all of them. She's like, the man name is like Thomas Wolf. Thomas Wolf is like on 50 of the same deeds for anybody that was with LaSalle Bank at that time. So he's a bachelor. When you look him up, he was still a bachelor. He died at like 90 and like 2000 or anything like that. He could never go after or anything like that. That's how it was back in the day. You know, times have changed now. So they put this deed in and tried to say that this was the person who owned the property, and he's no longer living, and the deed, I mean, and the quit claim deed that's registered with Cook County is null and void because this person is the person who owned it. And they never registered this deed with Cook County because they knew that it was fraudulent. They knew that my godfather owned this property. They knew that the trust, this deed that was in this trust, is in my godfather's name. So if they would have registered that deed, that was committing a fraudulent act. So what they did was they put a fraudulent document. They had it stamped by the Cook County. By that time, it was Edward Moody. He's not, he's not there anymore. They had him stamp it, and they gave it to the judge, acting as if this was the deed, and it wasn't the deed. So the lawyer, who's still the same lawyer now to this day, he didn't do his due diligence. He just went and got a fraudulent deed, gave it to the judge, just knew that the judge was going to side with him, which he did side with him, right? We had an attorney at the time. Our attorney did not fight that. He just was like, well, they have a deed and we can't do anything about it. Instead of going and doing his investigation, seeing that this deed is fraudulent, Your Honor. No, this is the real deed. Leonard Singleton is right here. This is the person who purchased, him and his brothers purchased this building in 1965. Here are all, my godfather has all the paperwork from when he first purchased it and everything, right? But because the lawyer that we had did not want to go up against the establishment, he just stopped. So now here we are with Leroy Singleton, my mother, all of the evidence when they first purchased it, all of the taxes that they paid since 1965 until they knocked the building down. They have the two of the deeds, two of the real deeds, not photocopy deeds. The Chicago Land and Trust and the city of Chicago has nothing. They have nothing because they knocked down a building that did not belong to them.
But your deed was also, you have the original copy of the deed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't hold water in the court?
Well, it holds water now. So the problem, so last year, November 1st, I was able to speak to our judge, our federal judge. We had a judge, when we first started, we had a lawyer. My mother filed the lawsuit February 28th, 2023, the last day of Black History Month. My mother filed the federal lawsuit, though, in New York City because she knew that Illinois was going to be on some BS. So we had at the time we had an attorney, a civil rights attorney, but he practiced in New York because we wanted it to be tried in New York. So when it first happened, when the city got wind that my mother refiled the case again, and this time it's in New York, the first thing they asked was for it to be sent back here because it's here. So the judge did grant it, put it back in Illinois. The lawyers that we had at the time, they weren't listening to me. I was trying to explain to them, this is a corrupt system in Chicago and Cook County. This is a machine, and this machine has been like this for a very, very long time, and everybody just lets them win. I said, I cannot, you have to listen to me. So he was not trying to pay attention to me. He was not understanding, and I'm like, look, you can't find a real estate attorney because a real estate attorney is an attorney that really needs to take this case. But no real estate attorneys want to take it either. But they're violating our civil rights as well. So somebody's going to have to break down the real estate part. So when they weren't trying to hear nothing I was saying, I told my mother to fire them. So she fired them, and during the summertime, I did all the work. I put everything together. I put the motions in. I did all that. So November 1st, when we went to go talk to the judge. The judge, my mother went up there, and my mother was speechless. She couldn't say anything. And I asked the judge, I said, Your Honor, can I please come up and talk? So the judge let me come up there and talk. And I explained to the judge that we can't get an attorney. And I explained to the judge how they keep stealing Black people's property and land. I also explained to the judge that my mother has a voicemail from the city of law department that she kept for 5 years that gave her the three options to get money for demolished property from the city of Chicago law department. She did everything. She filed the claim, like they said. Our alderman at the time, David Moore, was supposed to offer us some type of compensation, but he didn't because the person who was the committee on finance at the time was the chairman of committee on finance at the time was Ed Burke, so he wasn't going to bother Ed Burke. The third option was to file a lawsuit. File the lawsuit, they cheated. So I explained to him that the overall issue is they're stealing Black people's property. We can't get any help. So when he let me talk, he said, give me some time and I'll make my decision. So that was November 1st. He had 120 days to make a decision, and he never made a decision. And I knew why he didn't make a decision, because I really do feel like we have a fair lawyer, a fair judge, and he knows that we need an attorney, right? So 120 days go by. Then I started going down to City Hall committee meetings more and more, because I had got arrested for a while because they violated my First Amendment. So I was allowed to go back to the City Hall meetings in February. So every day I would go to a committee meeting and I would just let them play the voicemail on the mic, and then I would talk about the TIF money, and I would talk about I would bring
what voicemail
down.
did you play into the mic?
The city of Chicago law department voicemail. I still have it. I can send it to you after I get off. After this, I'll send it to you so you can listen to it. So I would play that, and once I started playing that on the mic, everybody, all the city hall people and the aldermen start looking around, looking at David Moore, because a lot of people don't know each alderman gets $1.5 million to figure out what they're going to do in their ward. So he could have offered us something, but he never offered us anything. So then we got the claims court. We got the claim. My mother filed the claim with the city of Chicago, who's self-insured. The city of Chicago said that the building was demolished October 2017. They say it was demolished October 2017. The demolition permit says it was demolished December 11th, 2017. The engineer, he went to he was at the building December 12th, 2017, because he was working on the building. So when my mother went and filed it, the city of Chicago said that the statute of limitations had expired. The statute of limitations for insurance claims in the city of Chicago is 2 years. So that was insurance fraud. Now, a lot of lawyers will say that wasn't insurance fraud, but it was insurance fraud. So then you deal with
Who benefited from their insurance fraud then?
huh?
Who benefited from their insurance
The
fraud?
city, because the city is self-insured, right?
Okay.
So the city's saying that the statute of limitations had expired. That's why my mother's claim was null and void. But if you look at this, the insurance, insurance laws in, especially commercial insurance in Illinois, it's 2 years. On top of that, 5 years if you're filing a lawsuit against the city or whatever. So, but if you continue to deal with any type of fraud, or they continue to keep committing fraudulent acts, the statute of limitations will never stop. Will never start, because you keep doing anything that's fraudulent. So when this was happening, I would go down there, I would play it for the people and all that stuff so everybody could hear it. By this time, everybody in the United States and in the world is watching the city of Chicago because of how they're handling the migrant crisis, how we have an incompetent mayor, how Governor Pritzker doesn't care. Also, the DNC is coming here, right? So everybody's watching Chicago. We're the only city that's pushing back on the migrant crisis. You've got 2 other people that's been going down there consistently about their housing issue. There's a lady named Miss Jessica. She's dealing with them trying to take her property in probate court. So you're dealing with these 2 people that are coming down there every week, not playing. So now YouTube media and some of Chicago media was catching little bits and stuff and putting us out there. So then I told Mayor Johnson, I asked him, like, could he please, I'm going to help, ask him, please help us, can you please settle this case, because at the end of the day, the city of Chicago did wrong by my family. He's ignoring me. Tony Preckwinkle is ignoring me. Governor Pritzker, everybody's attorney Kwame Raoul is not looking into it. The inspector general is not doing anything on the federal level. Merrick Garland, none of them do anything. So while the judge is still not making a ruling, because I know that the judge is like, these people need a lawyer. The only thing I could think of was to go to New York. I'm from New York. I'm originally from New York. My mom's from Chicago. And I asked, I know Charlemagne, the man from the Breakfast Club. He's one of the hosts of the Breakfast Club. I met him when I was working with Dick Gregory. I brought Dick Gregory to the Breakfast Club. So, and also Charlemagne, he's been watching my page. We follow each other. So he's watching my page. He's watching me going through this fight with my mother's with my mother's property. On top of, he's watching us talk about this migrant crisis that's affecting our community. So I texted him, I emailed him, and I said, hey, I need 30 minutes. Can you give me 30 minutes on he was like, well, have you reached out to anybody in the city? In Chicago? And I said, yeah. I said, but nobody, and they're all scared to take this story. And nobody doesn't want to go up against the city. So he gets back to me maybe about 30 minutes later, and he said, yeah, let's do it. He said, I'm gonna put you in touch with the producer and let's make it happen. So August 1st, I was able to go on the Breakfast Club, break down the overall issue with the housing thing. And by that time, I had started talking back to the lawyer that we first fired. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, I decided to say, okay, we need a lawyer. I know that's the only reason why he's not pushing this through. So they got back on the case. And when they got back on the case, I went to Breakfast Club and told my story. After I told my story, over 200 people reached out to me about their housing issues. I'll say about 30 in just Illinois. The rest was all over. Also, another friend of mine who did not know that I was dealing with this crisis, who happens to be an attorney, but she moved to Miami. She called and she said, I will help as well, pro bono, whatever. So she's also on the case as well. So now I have two attorneys on the case. So once I did Breakfast Club, we did get an answer from the city, and I mean from the judge. The judge wanted us to amend the complaint to add the other people on the complaint. We had 21 days. So we did. We amended the complaint. We put the Alderman David Moore on there, and we put Marlene Hopkins, who's the commissioner of the buildings department, on there. We put those people on there on top of adding my godfather on there as well. So once we did that, the city responded with a motion to dismiss, saying that we lacked jurisdiction, saying that basically we couldn't amend the complaint, but the judge gave us a court order to amend the complaint. Basically, they knew that it's done, it's over with, but of course they have to reply with the motion to dismiss. Our lawyers, with the help of myself, we responded to them. And right now we're waiting for the judge to respond. Last week, my mother talked to our lawyers, and they're saying that they're now going to push for discovery because they know that the city has no discovery. So from there, that's what we're waiting for. But in the meantime, since this has been happening, I helped a family that's in Harvey that's dealing with the same situation. They're trying to push them out, and they're saying it's not eminent domain, but it is. But I went and spoke to the Water Reclamation Commissioner Steele, who is on this project, and they have a corrupt mayor too in Harvey, Chris Clark. So the water reclamation people, they were under the impression that these people were happy that they were being moved out. But she didn't know that they're all in their 70s and 80s, and they do not want to be moved out. But so I've been helping with that. I'm also helping with, I'm helping as many people as I can when it comes to this housing issue, because it's a lot of people that have been losing their homes due to illegal foreclosures, due to the eminent domain, or property has been taken by the city and given to, like there's somebody in Inglewood, the Whole Foods that was in Inglewood, the property that it was sitting on, the land that it was sitting on, that was somebody else's property, and they never got paid for it. So a lot of people don't realize, like now they're starting to realize, but a lot of people are not understanding, like, oh, man, I can go fight for my property too, but you don't have any attorneys to help. So you got to do this work yourself.
How much compensation are you asking for? Because how much was the property worth that they demolished, and then separate from how much the land is worth? And they're offering to pay for just the land. At first, not even that, right?
Yeah, they're not paying. They're not offering anything now yet. But so my mother is suing the city for $3 billion. I think the minimum any land is worth $1 million. I think when it comes to the building, the land, on top of the government-run grocery store that they're trying to put on our land, on the other 6 slots, I think a minimum of $100 million would make everybody that's involved happy. My godfather was living in that building. They told him he had 10 minutes to get out that building. Okay. He also cashed in his life insurance policy. He's 80 years old. My mother put almost $800,000 in that building, on top of losing friends that she borrowed money from and stuff like that, trying to fight this. So my mother went into the hospital. My mother's sight is not the greatest right now, and trying to get her to the best eye doctor I can get her to, because my mother blood pressure went up, stroke levels. My mother, and that's my mom. My mother has always been an entrepreneur. My mother always was big on helping veterans. Our second cousin is Jesse Brown, that's named after the VA hospital. My mother was trying to do affordable housing for veterans, and her nonprofit, Notre Dame Affordable Housing, was for that. And they took all that away. They took everything away for greed. So I believe that $100 million would be a respectable amount to start. But if you're just talking about the land, the minimum is $1 million.
And this is happening everywhere. But even though it's happening, it seems as if blighted parts are still blighted. But what you're saying is the land and the buildings are being taken away from the owners.
Yes, because the overall thing is, so it gets deeper. You know, a lot of people don't want to go there, but socialism, they're trying to push a socialist, a communist agenda in America. So it's under the disguise of affordable housing. And what they're trying to do is take up as much, these corporations, with the help of these greedy politicians, with the help of these greedy developers, are trying to push an agenda where we it's going to be communist. It's going to be exactly how China is. You know, that's why they're pushing the police reform. They want to control us, and a lot of us are too blind to see it. You know, and because I'm down there at City Hall all the time, at committee meetings, at first I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying. I was just going down there fighting for my mom and getting on that mic. But once you start going to these finance meetings and these budget meetings and these real estate meetings and these CDC meetings, public building meetings, you realize that it's bigger than you, me, this government, and the agenda that they're pushing is not an American agenda. So because it's not an American agenda and it's filled with greed, and because a lot of people that snuck into these government positions during COVID or right before COVID, because a lot of us are politically lazy, a lot of us are politically ignorant. We go so fast, so far as voting blue, voting blue, voting blue, because that's what our parents told us. That's what our grandparents told us. And instead of looking at policies, instead of looking at what these politicians are trying to push, we don't do that. Or they'll push something like right now with this abortion agenda, you know, when it comes to women and Black women, and they know that's basically trying to say that we're not going to have any rights over our reproductive organs. And that's not the case, you know, but they're pushing that in front to scare Black women. You're pushing this in front to scare women in general that do not know the difference. You're scaring men who are like, you know, shit, some baby shouldn't be here, instead of knowing that it is pro-choice. And pro-choice is that you don't, just because may have made a mistake or you feel like you can't have this baby, it's not saying that you can't have abortions. Abortions are not going anywhere. Abortions have been here for a very long time. Abortions has been here before I was born, before you were born. Abortions have been here. So the issue is there's certain cities that you have to go to. I remember a family member of mine who's in their 70s. She had to get an abortion when she was at a young age, 14, 15. No. She was 17. And she had to go to New York City. But she's from Chicago. That didn't change anything. That didn't stop anything. What's happening now with Trump overturning Roe versus Wade, which a lot of people think that was a bad idea, but it wasn't. He let the states decide. You know, if you feel like you know, instead of it being hung up on our head the whole time, and it's a stupid argument that these crooked politicians run on, a meaningless argument too, he said, let the states decide. And that's what it does with the death penalty. You know, the issue is our Department of Justice is terrible. The Attorney General is very, very important. On the federal level, our Attorney General is super, super important. We have two deadbeat attorney generals on the federal level. Merrick Garland is absolutely terrible. Kristen Clark is absolutely terrible. Merrick Garland is a white man. Kristen Clark is a black woman. They are both terrible, terrible. We
How
also have a
how are they able to help you in your situation? If they were not that terrible, would they be able to help you in your situation?
yes, because they are the people who are supposed to intervene when rights are being violated, when corruption is happening. And
Have you
when you,
appealed it to them?
yes, I've reached out to them a million times.
And
I've
what did
reached
they
out,
say?
I've even found their personal emails.
And what was their response?
Nothing.
And did you also ask your local legislators, the federal
Yes, Kwame
legislators to help?
Raoul is our attorney general. Nothing. Me and there's a lady who I'm down there with, Miss Jessica. We went to Kwame Raoul's office. You understand? Nothing. Governor Pritzker, nothing. His chief of staff, her name is Anna, starts with a C, like Capri or something like that, but her first name is Anna. Nothing. You have Mayor Brandon Johnson, nothing. Tony Preckwinkle, Cook County Board President, nothing.
So
Deborah
who
Witz,
have you found at all to help you?
Charlemagne, the guy, the only person who let me get it out there to millions of people that have listened, that watched it, and public perception. You know, a lot of these media people, yourself, you're letting me talk about this. You know, that is that's who helped Mark, Mr. Armstrong. You know, the people. You know, that's who's been helping me get it out here.
So no elected officials are helping at all.
No, they don't even know where to start.
And when you go to City Hall, every week you're at public comment saying the same thing, the situation, and asking for
Yes.
help.
To the point that I finally told them, well, I told them last year around this time, maybe in September, I told that man, Brandon Johnson, at one of the City Hall meetings, that if they did not settle my case, that I would do everything possible to flip this state red. Just like I was in Georgia when they flipped Georgia blue. You know, I gave up. I'm like, I can't, this is helpless.
Well,
Dorothy Tucker came to my house.
what about the Republicans? If you flip red, if are there Republicans out there that are helping you now?
Well, I really haven't reached out to them. The Illinois Republicans, I don't even think they had I don't even think they know what they got right now. I think we have probably woken them up. There is a lady that is running for state rep in the 8th district. Her name is Leslie Collazo. Um, you know, she has came to a couple of press conference. She's came to a few event that I've had. Bob Fioretti, you know, he's running for state's attorney. He came to my event on Friday, and he told me that after the election is over, after get the election stuff over, that him and his wife Nikki wanted to sit down with me to discuss more about this situation. That's the only two people. Mm-hmm. And Bob Ferretti, I think, and I didn't even know that he was a civil rights attorney, but he mentioned it. He brought it up. You know, I didn't bring it up. You know, he said, "Hey, you know, after this is done, let's sit down and talk," because I didn't even, you know, I wasn't even aware of that. And when I said to Sandpiper's Lounge, like his face, you know, I'm telling a story, you know, just explaining, but I'm not asking for his help. It was just basically, as you being a state's attorney, you know, are you open to filing charges against public corruption? Because they need to go to jail too. You understand? Like these politicians, these developers, and stuff like that. So that's how the question came. But when we were leaving, when I was walking him down the stairs, he brought that up. So those were the only two, because I had decided not to bring it up anymore. You know, I had made up my mind what I was going to do, and that I know that my mother's going to get victory regardless. So But now, those two people did reach out. I mean, did say that, that our candidates are asking questions.
So what are the elected officials and the developers hiding behind? Do they have are they standing on a strong stronghold? Is it just the status quo, or is there something else protecting them?
The status quo, the churches, it's a lot of corrupt clergy. For instance, for mine, Father Flager, he run the 17th ward, and he's been running the 17th ward, and a lot of people protect him over there, especially Black people, because they think that he's good for the community, but he's not. And if you come to him talking about what's going on with your stuff, his thing is like, who sent you? Because he want to know how much you know, because he knows everything.
So you did try to contact him, and he was not helpful at all.
Yeah, my mother has. I haven't spoken to him. My mother spoke to him a couple of times, but when 2 weeks ago, I went into where they're trying to build this government-run grocery stores, now the Yellow Banana, where the Save-A-Lot is. And I did a video, live, went live in there, talked about the whole thing, went off on the lady, asked them how to, all this stuff. And I remember when the girl, my mom said, I didn't hear it. My mom said one of the ladies was like, go call Father Flager. Now, how does Father Flager is involved in that? How is he involved in that government-run grocery store? How is he involved in the Save-A-Lot thing? How is he involved with them other 6 lots? Why Father Flager?
Is it under his archdiocese? Is it?
I don't know. That's something that's good to know. But no, we don't. I mean, I don't know. I just know that that's what they immediately say. Go find Father Flager.
Well, Zoe Leigh, thank you so much for all this information.
Yeah.
What are your next steps? You've done almost everything, but what are your next steps?
My next steps is to, honestly pray, pray and make sure that everything goes right. I believe that we're going to win the case. I believe that it's going to be a breakthrough that that everybody needs to know. I feel like it's going to be a breakthrough. I feel like our case is going to be a landmark case, and it will help others get their justice that they need. And I pray that Trump get in office. I pray that Trump gets in office so the Department of Justice change and that they start going after these corrupt politicians, because nothing's going to change unless the feds get involved, the Department of Justice gets involved, the IRS criminal division gets involved, and they start auditing each of these departments, starting with the Department of Building Department. And 2026, 2027, we're able to get Kwame Raoul out, Tony Preckwinkle out, 2027, the mayor, and these disgraced 50. That's what I call the aldermen, the disgraced 50.
What indications do you have that the Republicans will help you? What have they helped the people in your position before?
Well, we've never, I've never I never was into politics, so I don't know. But I do know that we have to give them a chance, just like everybody's given everyone has given, the Black majority vote has given Democrat their vote for a very, very, very long time, for 60 years. 1964 is when we got the Civil Rights Act, right? And we have seen nothing. We were doing better before Dr. King went to Lyndon B. Johnson and got us to vote blue. We had everything in our communities. Look at our communities then and look at our communities now. And that wasn't the Republican Party that did it. So I feel like we are a republic. I feel like we have to switch it up. People have to understand the power of the vote. And I feel like it's time to give the Republican Party a chance. We had Trump in office. I know I had Trump in office and it was nothing compared to what we're doing. Overall, the housing situation is terrible. But you got to think about it. If you're an entrepreneur, the way our taxes are insane. You have to think
Was
about
so
inflation.
were you able to get under the Trump administration? Were you able to get more wealth during the Trump administration? Were the loan?
Absolutely. More wealth, prices were normal. Inflation was not like this. You know, they keep saying there was inflation when he was in office. Well, if it was inflation when we were in office, you could not tell. You understand? Gas was normal. Groceries were normal. You know, a lot of my friends, we don't sit around talking about abortions. We're talking about why is the cost of living so high and why are these interest rates so high when credit is decent. People always push that you got to have good credit. Then when your credit is decent, you can't barely buy anything. And this is the Biden Harris administration. And on top of the illegal immigration scam, you know, from 2021, that executive order that was signed, anything that was to close the border or to secure the border, Biden went in there and decided that, you know what, we're gonna freeze everything that he did. He undid it. So we're dealing with a migrant crisis in our communities that is the worst ever.
Okay, so but however, while the all the land was being taken from your fellow community members, black and
Right.
some Asians alike, during the Trump administration, all these years that land was being taken. Even though during those 4 years of the administration, the status quo was that that land was being taken from you.
You're right. And I wasn't involved at that time. See, my mom wouldn't have thought to reach out to Trump. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't involved in 2017. At that time, Mr. Gregory was still alive. So I was out here on tour. So I didn't really get it and understand the importance of this. My mother was a Democrat. Why would she be going why would she be reaching out to somebody else when she would think that she did everything what that law department said? On top of that, she had a lawyer at that time. So she would have thought that the lawyer was going to do well. Now that it's 2024, well, at that time 2023, I'm involved. And because I'm now going to City Hall, I'm now going to all the elected officials, I'm reaching out to, okay, well, if they're not going to do anything, then I know that the chief of staff, Biden chief of staff, is going to do something. Oh, I know Attorney Merrick Garland is going to do something because we have all the evidence. But
Well,
to realize that they're not doing.
what about some of the Republican legislators? What about
Well, there's no
those
Republican. The Republican legislators in Chicago. Who are they? I've reached out to. This is a Democratic town. The only thing I didn't do. The
there
only thing
are a
that I.
couple of there seems to be a couple of aldermen that are Republican, at least.
No, they're all Democrat. There's one alderman that used to be a Republican and he's an independent now. You're talking about Napolitano,
Yes.
Alderman Napolitano. But no, they are all. When you look them up, they're all Democrats. Now they may want to be. I mean, you can't be a Republican. The last person that was able to like freely win an election as a Republican, that's like was Governor Rauner, and they said Governor Rauner was terrible. You know, I wasn't here when I wasn't like around when Governor Rauner was there. He was a Republican. So
However, what I'm just trying to point out is that what has been happening with all this land grabbing by the developers and by the city, and maybe I don't know if you know if it's happening in other jurisdictions besides Chicago. That's
yeah, I
happening
said
during the
Harvey.
Rauner. It seems as if it's an entrenched situation that was happening during the Rauner administration, during the Trump administration, and they really did not do anything to help the people that were losing their land.
Well, I never reached out to Ron. I never reached out to Trump because at that time I wasn't involved. I just
Got
got
it.
involved.
Got
When
it.
it comes to, so, and my mother, she had an attorney. So you would think with the attorney that everything is fine. So I can't say that they would have done anything because I wasn't there at that time. And my mother had an attorney who ended up selling her out. So I
And
can't say that.
what about that attorney? Is there anywhere that you could complain about the attorney and not
Yeah,
the
we reached out to ARDC, but ARDC, they don't do anything.
for our listeners, what does ARDC represent?
That I don't know what it's for. I mean, I don't know like the correct what ARDC is. I can look it up, but I know that it's for when you when you have an issue with a lawyer. If they violated any type of code, they violated the bar, they violated anything, they took your money and didn't do what they were supposed to do, and you have evidence and you're supposed to send it to them, you file a complaint, and someone from the judicial board and the lawyer board is supposed to reach back out to you, and they're supposed to they're supposed to debar them if it's real bad.
Is it
But
AODC or ARC?
A as in Apple, R as in Roger, D as in dog, C as in Charlie. I can look it up real quick to just see what.
Oh no, that's okay. Sure.
Yeah, because I need to know that anyway. But yeah, ARDC is the Illinois Attorney Registered Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission.
Got it. Thank you.
So a lot of them are different. Like that's for Illinois, but like in other cities, it's something else. But yeah, and they're supposed to. You're supposed to go to them and you can give them all your evidence and show them that, hey, this person didn't do this or this person messed up this case, and they're supposed to reprimand that person, but they don't do that. No one does anything. So like we literally are dealing with a lawless America that we're paying taxes. So when people sit here and say, well, the Republican Party ain't going to do nothing, the Democrat Party is not going to do anything, you have to force them to do something. And the only way I know how to force someone.
What about under the Freedom of Information Act? Have you done it?
FOIA.
Yes. Did you request any information concerning this case? And also for the ARDC, did you find out if they have ever reprimanded or disciplined other attorneys, if not your attorney? Did they? I'm assuming that they did not discipline your mother's
No,
attorney.
they didn't. Man, I never looked up to see if they ever disciplined anybody. So yeah, that's something I need to look up. But no, I just know that I've filed a complaint with them a few times, and my mother did too.
Mhm. And for Freedom of Information Act, did you use that to look to find out any uh, information that you needed, and what was the result of your FOIAs, if you did any?
Well, Dorothy Tucker did. Dorothy Tucker was going to originally take the story, and she FOIA to see, and she gave me the information. She forwarded the information to me, and what the city gave her was that they can knock the building down because of police powers.
But that was very general. It's police powers can't are they say what
Yeah,
exactly
I mean,
they
I
mean
said
by that?
literally that's all they gave her. Like that's all they gave her, and she went with it.
Mhm.
Instead of being the award-winning investigative journalist that she is, to start asking questions like, okay, well, you say it was a building violation. Okay, do you have the court order? She didn't ask any of those questions because, again, they told her, Dorothy, leave it alone. You know, saying like anybody in that city knows about this case. Anybody that works in the city hall in Cook County knows about this case. They know that it's wrong. They know that it was fraudulent. They know that it was done wrong. But they all took an oath, and the oath honestly is not to help the citizens. This is a machine that continues to do people dirty. So when people come to me and be like, well, you know, the Republican Party, da, 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 I don't know. The Republican Party didn't knock my building down. The Republican Party did not do kickbacks for my building or my land. Also, the Republican Party did not arrest me 3 times for coming down there fighting for my property.
Where
So
where did they arrest you?
the first time was in November of last year for violation of my First Amendment. They what's her name? Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez wouldn't let me speak when she knew I signed up for public comment. The other time was they attempted to arrest me the first time because they were trying to say that the public couldn't go upstairs for City Hall because it was a private event and you had to have tickets to go to the public comment thing. And I said that's violation of Open Public Meetings Act. So when I tried to go into the elevator, the police were like, Zoe, you can't go, da 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 da. And they put a handcuff on me, but they ended up letting me go when I said, this is a violation. You cannot have a ticketed event for a city hall meeting that is open to the public, because their goal was to always put us up to the 3rd floor where there's a plexiglass. The third time they arrested me was Cook County board meeting. Tony Preckwinkle, when I was in the middle of my sentence, I called her a house Negro. And she said that they said that was bad language. And she asked the sheriffs to get me out of there. And the sheriffs took me and they detained me, but they let me go because you can't arrest me for speaking my mind, and I'm not doing anything threatening. I'm not threatening you in a harmful way. I just asked you, why were you a house Negro at the age of 77? Because you are allowing these people to come up to Cook County to mess with people's deeds. Anybody can go in there and switch out deeds. And she is the Cook County Board President. You can go get somebody to notarize anything for you, and they can go up there and pay whoever's working up there, and they will switch out deeds, take out deeds for you, do whatever, and nothing is happening. That is a criminal. They are committing crime.
Yeah. What proof do you have of this happening? Do you have proof of this happening?
Yeah, I mean, so many people do it. We're dealing with it now. They're telling me that the city of Chicago doesn't own our building, and we got a fraudulent deed that was that the city gave to the judge in a previous case and said this is why they don't own it. They don't own it because this man owns it, knowing damn well that this man doesn't own it. They know who owns it. Yeah, this is what they do, and they continue to do it because they abuse their power. This is straight public corruption.
If you can, please send us a copy of the fraudulent deed.
Okay.
And if you can, also send us a copy of your rightful deed so that we have that as sources.
Okay.
And then if you have others that have similar situations, I'm sure there are. If you could get more, that would also help your case.
Right. Yes, I will. And then there's another lady that you should interview. I will send her information to you. Actually, I will give you her email address or Mr. Armstrong email address, and see her situation. Her situation is, the overall issue is they're stealing property from the south side, west side. Well, definitely the south side. But she is on South Shore, and she's fighting with the city, Cook County, because they are trying to take her property through probate court. And she has so many fraudulent documents in her case that at the end of the day, they're trying to ignore all of her fraudulent documents, and they're right there. Like when I say there's so many fraudulent documents and they just ignore it, everybody ignores it.
And also, too, you mentioned that Dorothy Tucker was asked to remove herself from the investigating your case.
I believe that, because she came to my house. She came, brought donuts. She listened to the voicemail that I'll send you. She saw it, you know, and I remember sending an email, I think in December or something, saying like you don't see the discrimination, you don't see the criminal, the fraud in this, you don't see any of this, like I can't get any help. And I remember her sending me an email back saying like, I'm so sorry, Zoe, because her producer told her not to take the case. Take the story. Sorry.
Well, send us the voicemail too if you can.
I will.
Okay. Zoe Leigh, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. If our listeners want to learn more, is there anywhere that they could go?
Yes, I have a X account. It's Mr. Steal Your Wig, MrStealYourWig1. My YouTube is the same. On Facebook, my name, Zoe Leigh. Instagram, the same, Mr. Steal Your Wig 1, the number 1. And then email. I always am open to taking any comments or questions, or even if you would like to help in any type of way, or Leigh, Leigh, Zoe23@gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Later, please send me the links for your social as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for interviewing with us.
Yes. Bye-bye.